for her and too much respect for the position to do what the Democrats did. The Democrats were all hook, line, and sinker on making sure that Justice Kavanaugh didn't get confirmed. And they went back to high school days and brought some white female in there and told her to put on some bifocals, don't comb your hair and just sit back and look dumb and say that he did something to you when you were 16, but you really don't remember. The Republicans vowed to not do that. So when you see headlines that the Republicans are going after her, no, they're asking hard questions, because when you are talking about putting somebody in the Supreme Court, clearly it's about the content of their character. Now, I saw them ask her religious questions, and she basically chose not to answer. But a conservative Republican to go on and tell them, I'm an Orthodox Christian, and I went to Liberty University. I'm the leader of the evangelical, and then they will be demonized. But you have a Protestant black sister who says she's non-denominational. No, she has a very strong faith, but she gets the opportunity to not speak on her religious beliefs because of the dangers that would happen if you do that. She's smart. She learned that. So hopefully the Republicans can actually figure out and stop putting your religion out there on the line, because they make religion look bad for racist white people to claim to be religious, but they're not doing nothing to liberate the people who are still oppressed and who are still federally slaves. And we'll get back to that. But the parallels between Joe Biden and Lyndon B. Johnson switched the script so we could be the first. She's not the first. Janice Rodgers Brown was the first that was filibustered by Joe Biden. And she was filibustered for 2 years, and it was because of her background. Single mother, daughter of sharecroppers, paid her way through school, through UCLA, and worked her way up to the California Supreme Court, but she wasn't good enough. So when I say follow the science, man, let's follow the science. Let's just follow the science. The science of Willie Lynn says, once you get that black woman in the house with you, you can sleep a little better at night. So look at the interesting parallel with our Supreme Court nominee, Miss Brown Jackson. Now, Miss Brown Jackson went to Harvard for undergrad and for her master's program. Okay. So she went to Harvard, graduate school and undergrad. She got 2 degrees from Harvard. And then I'm looking at her name, Brown Jackson. So I'm like, okay, her daddy named Brown. So she must have married some brother named Jackson. So let me check him out. And when I looked up her husband, I saw 6-year generation Harvard graduate. And I said, wait a minute, his name Jackson, but 6 generations? That goes back into the early 1900s, late 1800s, and what? No black people going to Harvard then. Let me check him out. So I went and checked him out. Now, he ain't black. He's a white man. He's Caucasian. So look at the science. Get the black woman that's married to the white man, because it sounds a little bit familiar. And I remember when we was saying, who is Kamala Harris married to? And we saw Douglas. Oh, okay, she married to Doug. Yeah, let's check it out. And then we looked it up and it said, oh, not black Doug. She married to white Doug. So look at the parallels. Black women, white spouses. Is this the prerequisite for our politics, especially in the Democratic Party? Because when I say this, when you are part of the Democratic Party, you are liberal. And when you are part of that liberal brand, liberal does not mean freedom. Liberal means control by society. I know evildoers in high places and powers and principalities, but liberals not like that. A liberal will fight and argue with you about the dumbest things on the world because it matters to them. My sexuality is not an issue. I have no problem with my sexuality. I'm a man, I'm an alpha male, and I love, I ain't gonna say it. But when you look at the other side, you have so many parallels, and it goes to the social consciousness, because the science is men and women typically go against each other. OK. But then if you look at the crab bucket of liberalism, no one gets out because they eat each other, because no one loves no one, because there's no solidarity or connections with ethnicities. It seems like it's like the poor versus the rich. And there's more rich, elitist liberals than they are conservatives. Just look at the Illuminati, and look at the Freemasonry, and you just look at the big scope, of these large secret societies who actually control the smaller secret societies. But that science of Willie Lynch is real. Would Joe Biden had nominated Ms. Brown Jackson as a Supreme Court justice if she had a black husband? Absolutely not. Because black women married to black men somehow have a little more power, a little more aggressive, and a little more authority and a little more freedom to be themselves. Now, when you are a black woman and you're married to a white man, you are a sister, but you can't keep it 100 with your people because of who you are married to. The science is real. Now, she's sitting there. I'm speaking of our Supreme Court justice, the second not black nominated. George Bush nominated the first one, contrary to popular opinion, whose name was Janice Rodgers Brown back in 2003. Now, Brown Jackson, the nomination that's getting confirmed and having confirmation hearings right now, when I see the fact that she is married to a white man, I can see the lack of fear that she has talking to these old white congressmen. And that's a good thing. But she's not just married to a white man. She's married to the chair, neurosurgeon at Georgetown University in D.C. He's a Harvard graduate as well. And he's about 6 years younger than her. So she was more than likely working on her thesis in her master's program. And he was like a freshman when they met, if they did meet at school, just based on the ages, because she's 51 and he's 46. So 4 years, they smart. They might graduate in 3, but she's doing her master's program and he's starting his undergrad. Or I would say her graduate program and he's on his undergrad. But whatever the case is, and they have children, we'll keep the children out of this. But the parallel is the fact that politicians believe, Joe Biden included, Lyndon B. Johnson, that if you change code and switch code, that everyone would just believe the history down the road, but not in 2022. Not in 2022. Things are different now. We literally challenge everything now. So to sit back and allow them to basically pull pages out of the books and try to make it seem like it's somebody else and it's not them. The party of slavery, Democratic Party, we know that. And I saw an interesting article where someone that's running for public position, they basically said we need to get rid of, Confederate flags. I said, don't just get rid of Confederate flags. Let's get rid of the Confederacy. And I dare you to really look into the history of the Confederacy, because the Confederacy, the history of the Confederacy leads you to the Democratic Party, segregated South, slavery, fought for slavery, just like the South fought to preserve slavery. Europe did too. And you see the interesting parallels in plain sight. In plain sight. And that's sad that we can't talk about it, that the mainstream is, it's going to just push it and make us just listen and try to figure it out ourselves. And that's what we're doing. Confederacy must go. When George W. put Condoleezza Rice on his cabinet, the General Colin Powell was on his cabinet, nobody said nothing. But soon as the Democrats We want to be the first for everything because history tells the story. Because I am starting to be really interested into the dark ages, because the dark ages are starting to come out. That's when we ruled, and they got rid of all of our history, and some of it is classified. And this is why the Harvard scholars are working in conjunction with the Ivy League system to basically break it down so we can have these conversations about the 9 series and the 2-6 series DNA. Because the 9 series DNA is the master humans. So whoever has the 9 series DNA, when I'm saying in terms of a racial group, that's the master race. And we want the Harvard scholars and the Harvard Society to actually, work in conjunction with their constituents and, the people in their league to basically set the record straight, because this 2-party system must die. There's no way we can survive as a race of people under the 2-party system. And it seems like the devil has manifested himself and got people thinking that he's God. And that's what he do. So if you look at the Democratic Party as a whole, we're going to have to really understand, what our plan is moving forward. So this is why a better Black America is basically engaging in the politics, making sacrifices to basically do the work that most are not willing to do, to basically put it in layman's terms so we can really understand that this is an opportunity of a lifetime for us to basically fix the system. Because just like getting rid of the Confederate, we have to get rid of the Democratic Party as a whole. And I'm not saying, and let's make this clear, we're not enlisting and re-registering to be Republicans, because there's no difference between white, rich liberals and influencers and white, rich, elitist Republicans and influencers. And a lot of these things and these issues are pissing contests between the latter. I got money, so I'm going to pay the Russians. I got money, I'm going to pay the Ukrainians. And we're going to sit back and watch them fight. And we're going to cut side deals and broker each other and just sit back and just watch bombs over Ukraine like we used to watch and make songs. And I remember the one, bombs over Baghdad. But see, those were sand niggers. This is white on white. And when you talk about critical race, so many stories, and I'm working on the piece right now, so many stories are coming out about the racial tone in Ukraine. I'm seeing stories where international college students of African descent from Africa, India, and mostly nations of color are unable to utilize the transportation that is exiting Ukraine. They can't get on the trains. They can't get on the buses. They're left to figure it out for themselves. And they clearly have made, and I've seen this on a whole lot of different outlets, where priority is white women and their white children. The men are going to fight, depending on your age, if you're a grandfather, and a lot of them are staying to fight. But the priorities are women, white women and their white children. Because I read too many stories to even count cases where Black people, in terms of racial color, I could care less of where they're from, are basically watching these transportation outlets leave the stations that they're all at, but they can't get on. And they said these buses and trains have empty seats and they cannot even get on. So when you talk about discrimination, when you talk about due process, when you talk about racism as a whole, this is why critical race theory, or CRT, is very important, because somehow everything is connected. You have a Supreme Court justice that's being grilled right now, and it's it's slow pitch softball. They're not throwing it hard. They just questioning, getting it out the way, because she more than likely will be confirmed, just like the Crown Act passed, and we'll talk about that on another show. But the science is there, clearly. Now, her husband, white, doctor, 6th generation. Her background, So kind of reminds you of the Obama when Joe